I graduated from Clintonville High School in 1937 and I went to the Air Force for 44 months. I was in the Air Force and I got in there I enlisted right after the last day of the month after Pearl Harbor. And we got some training on B-25 Mitchell bombers, and we flew overseas in one of them. In fact, it was the first formation of airplanes that ever flew the South Atlantic way to get to Africa. We took off from Florida and went from there to Puerto Rico, then Trinidad, and Dutch Guiana. From Dutch Guiana we went to Natal, Brazil, and Belém, Brazil. We had to wait at one of the places, I forget which, for 3 days to get a good tailwind so we could make it out to the Ascension Islands, which was an island out in the South Atlantic. So when it finally got a good tailwind, we took off, hoping we could make it on what gasoline we had. This runway they had in the Ascension Islands was built by the Americans. The English think had tried to build a runway there it was built on volcano ash, and it was low on both sides and high in the middle. You couldn't see from one end to the other. So we took off from Ascension Islands for the Gold Coast of Africa. We landed there in Roberts Field. That was a Firestone plantation. They had a big airport there in Western. Then we went from there, I think it was to Dakar, and then from down into Africa to Ainwalilo, where we stayed for, I think, 3 months. We moved about every 3 months. Whenever they get a runway in good shape, then we give it up to the heavy bombers, and we took a dirt field. So while I was there, I had a chance to take a trip to Africa. So I got to see the pyramids in Africa. I got to go out down to the underground burial place where they had the sacred bull buried and all these kings from years ago. The size of them caskets they had for these kings and the sacred bull is all marble. And they just slid the lids back on them and took everything out that was in them. They was empty when I was there. Then back to Italy we went. So it was a long trip. When I was in the Army, we made quite a few moves. Every time to get a runway a little closer to the front, well, that was for us. 33 months I spent overseas. I was signed up to go overseas for 1 year for experimental outfit it was the first planes that ever had the armor plate on, just testing them out. When the year was up, they had us packed up to come home, and they canceled it. We stayed there for the duration. While I was overseas, our tent burned down and burned up everything we had. Somebody was a fire going outside, and the wind blew. They'd burn us scrap. One place was at, our tents was in a olive grove, and we was just waiting till they got ripe so we could have some good olives, but they was too bitter to eat. They wasn't ready. I don't know how to fix them up to taste good. And while I was in Africa or Italy, Mount Vesuvius Vesuvius erupted. We was only about 40, 50 miles from it, and we had to sweep the dust off of airplane wings a couple times a day. It was that thick. While I was in Italy, I got to see the Vatican City. Oh, this one day was moving from one airfield to another, and there's 3 airplanes hauling stuff, and right after it took off, we got into a bad storm. I don't know why, but we shouldn't have. One airplane crashed in the mountains, and one went out to sea and crashed and never. But the one I was on, it made it right to the airfield where we were supposed to go, and when we got there, it was just as clear as the day, a nice day in June. It's hard to believe how coming out of that storm. But it was between the airfield where we'd left and where we was going, we was flying among the mountains. You could look out the window, and once in a while you see a peak off to the right or left of you. And it's pretty scary, but then we come out right over the airfield. This is as clear as could be. Then another time we'd been down to Tripoli, we was getting loaded of vegetables, cabbage and potatoes, and I don't know what all. And it was ready to take off from there. The tower warned us not to take off, but we did anyway. We had the plane loaded so heavy in the back end that had to put a block, a big wooden box on the tail to get the engine started to hold the front end down. But after we got up in the air, we hit a big storm there. Oh, I never seen one like that when it was flying. We went into a dive. The plane just went into a dive itself. We was headed towards the water about 350 miles an hour. We get down within about 300 feet of that, the plane pulled out and went on level flight to Italy. But that pilot and co-pilot, they pulled so hard on the controls, the blood just come out of their knuckles. We made it, and as soon as they got to Italy, they got and kissed the ground. When the war was over in Europe, they said to send all the guys home with the high number of points. I had the high number, but instead of sending me home, they was going to send me to Japan for the go over there. I didn't agree to go, so I told them, give me a furlough in the States for 30 days, I'll gladly go to Japan, for I hadn't been home for almost 3 years. Well, they came up with a deal and said it looked pretty good. They'd send me to Japan, and if they had transportation, they'd send me home for 30 days. I said, no deal. Well, one of the guys in our outfit, he was a lawyer. He said, I'll fix them. He typed out a letter for the, and sent the Inspector General, who was in Naples right at the time. He told them what they was trying to do with us. Guys that had the high number of points send us to Japan. He sends a telegram to the commanding officer in our airfield. He said, get them men out of here today. So we got out of there that day, but we had to wait 9 days in Naples, Naples, for to get a boat to the United States. Well, that was a long wait. 9 days doing nothing. Well, we started out in the boat, and the first night we got into a storm, and one of the propellers broke. Had to go back to Italy for repair. And we got going again the next day, and it was 13 days on a boat before we got to New York. I didn't get home then. They sent us to, I think it was New Cumberland, Pennsylvania. And one of them places down around Harrisburg. Anyway, in about 6 days' time, I was out of the Army for good. I had a pretty good life, a good family, and a very good wife, good grandchildren, and I loved them all. Great grandchildren, oh, there's something.